Hey, this is Maggie.
And this is James.
And you're listening to Directors on Tap,
the podcast where we sit down weekly to discuss film industry news, new favorites, and what we're watching.
Today we're talking about Lupin and WandaVision, as well as a new film page that is up and running.
Hope you like the show.
Wow, adding stuff to my script.
I figured you could cut it out if you don't like it. Mags, tell me about Lupin.
So, Lupin is a story that follows professional thief Hassan Diop, and he's the only son of an immigrant from Senegal who had come to France to seek a better life for his child. However, early on during their stay in France, Hassan's father is framed for the theft of an expensive diamond necklace by his employer. Hassan's father is employed by the wealthy and powerful Hubert Pellegrini.
It's a good show.
It is.
It is very good. We watched it in English because Mags is insane and doesn't want to watch subtitles.
Okay, but I like subtitles, like Parasite. Like, we watched that obviously in
Korean.
Its original language, but with English subtitles, which I liked. But like for this thing, I don't know. I
felt bad.
feel like I felt bad, but I'm also like, it kind of takes away from like me watching the film and paying attention to the acting, because then I'm like reading the captions.
I can see that too. I don't know. I don't know. It was bothering me. But I mean, they did a good job on the dub too. I mean, every once in a while there was a line where you could clearly like, wow, this phrase is so much longer in French, because there'd be like a gap every once in a while when they would talk. But
I thought it would be I thought it'd be more noticeable.
Yeah, it was actually pretty well done.
Yeah. So what I really liked about it were like the flashbacks and like how they were placed, and I guess that goes like hand in hand with the pacing too, because it never felt like it was like dragging on. And like it introduces new characters and new hints at like a nice pace, so it was like, it was never not like interesting to watch. It was like there was no like dragging, like I said before, so it was nice. Yeah,
and like how you touched on with the flashbacks and introducing new characters, I thought their introduction of each new character was very well done. Because you didn't even always, what's the way to put it? It wasn't always immediately clear, like, oh, this is a new character we have to pay attention to. Like, they would just slowly slip them in, and then they'd become apparent that you needed to pay attention to them by the time they were plot relevant. I'm thinking specifically of like the commissioner guy in modern time, not commissioner, whatever, the detective. Was he a commissioner by the time we got to modern day? He wasn't a detective anymore. He was something else.
Are you talking about the cop who was like the head of the? Yeah. He was trying to figure out what like Hassan's.
Yeah. And like the way like you first get introduced to him with the flashbacks, and you think like, or at least I at the time.
Oh no, that's the other guy. I thought you were talking about the one who's like thinks Hassan's doing that like story.
Oh no, I'm talking about the guy who,
the lead,
the not detective guy, the guy who was a detective in the past and is now in charge.
Yeah. What was his name?
I can't recall, but I like his introduction of the character, where first you're just introduced in flashbacks, and you're just like, you just think he's like, a background character. Then he gets a little bit more prevalent in the flashbacks. Then he gets very prevalent in the present. Like they didn't just sort of, it's not like they didn't go for like the traditional boom, massive introduction for each new character where you're like, this is clearly a new character you got to pay attention to. They were like, hey, they're organically a part of this world, and as they become relevant, they grow in screen time. And I liked that a lot. Thought that was very good world building.
I was trying to find the name of the detective.
Yeah. Any luck?
What was his name? Oh, Dumont.
Oh, Dumont. Professor Dumont. Not Professor. Dumont. Detective Dumont.
Dumont.
And also, by the way, we're also going to be pronouncing Lupin wrong basically the whole time because we don't speak French. It's supposed to be Lupin, but we speak English, so we say Lupin.
Yeah. Yeah, I also wrote down, like, I really liked the editing and, like, cinematography, because I think, like, the like intense scenes had more of like an edge because of the editing and like the close-up shots that they would like add in. Like specifically with the when he's bidding on the necklace, and then what was the other one? I think it was like when Hassan's father is like getting detained for supposedly stealing the necklace, but yeah.
Speaking of like how you mentioned the cinematography looking nice, do you know? Because I don't know off the top of my head. I should have looked it up, but now that it's in my mind, if Netflix produced the show or if they just bought the rights to it in the U.S. Because one of the things that I was a little concerned about, just in general of Netflix shows that I've been noticing, and I think it may be just a Netflix produced thing, but because with the cinematography and the show being very nice. That's not true of a lot of Netflix shows. Like I was watching The Witcher and it looks like a soap opera. Like everything's so well done, but the cinematography is so bad. And I was worried like when we were watching other Netflix originals that like it would have subpar cinematography like that. But
really?
Yeah, because I've noticed it with a lot of different shows, like even Series of Unfortunate Events, which I loved that book series growing up. And I loved, so I of course had to watch the show. But it was the same thing. I was like, this has that Netflix show look in the cinematography. So I'm wondering if that's just the ones that Netflix straight up owns, or if maybe, and the reason why Lupin doesn't look like that is maybe they just bought the rights to it and didn't actually produce it. Which I don't know. I'm just wondering. Like that just popped in my head. Like I bet that's why the cinematography was so much nicer because Netflix wasn't in charge of making it. I don't know what's going on with their cinematography department at Netflix. I mean, there's some exceptions, like Stranger Things.
I feel like I don't think I've noticed that. Yeah, see, that's what popped into my head with Stranger Things.
Yeah, Stranger Things is definitely an exception to that.
Black Mirror.
Well, they bought Black Mirror. Black Mirror wasn't Black Mirror was originally a British TV show, so they have the same crew working on it from before. So that's
yeah.
why.
I don't think I know enough about the like rates and stuff to know which ones were done by Netflix. And like I can't remember.
Well, Black Mirror, they own Black Mirror now, but when the first 2 or 3 seasons, I think, they were just licensing it, but now they just straight up own it. But yeah, but I've noticed it's definitely bad with, like the most prevalent one in my mind, just because I was watching it recently, was The Witcher, where I was like, these sets look amazing, the cast is good, the cinematography is awful. And I'm sorry if the cinematographer is ever listening to this, but I don't know what you were doing, bro. Like, I'm sure your other stuff's great, but this wasn't it. But yeah, it looked very nice. Everything's very well lit and shot well.
Yeah, definitely. I guess like the one thing I didn't say about the flashbacks was like I love how like we got a sense of how bad Hassan wants revenge on Pellegrini through the flashbacks, and like the way. And then, like, the way he acts in present time.
Yeah.
Because they're, like, totally, I guess, opposites. But, because, like, the flashbacks are when he's a kid and he's more, like, reserved and shy. But then we, like, see, like, what was bothering him through, like, the interactions with Dumont. But then in, like, real time, we see him again. So, I don't know, it's a good variety, and I just really liked the dynamic between those 2 different times.
And with those 2 different times, also how you mentioned that is like the variety between them. At the same time, it was totally, sometimes when they do flashbacks like before and after, they just don't even feel like the same character. He still felt like they preserved like the essence of who he was in both the past and the present, even when he's so different. Which isn't always accomplished. So, like,
I agree. I think that also is probably a testament to like how they like placed them too. Like how often they go back to the flashbacks, because sometimes they're like randomly placed and then it feel like jumbled, so like kind of. So I feel like it's probably also because of the way that they placed them.
They had good casting choices too for the younger versions of each character.
I thought the casting was pretty great, So we also just watched WandaVision yesterday. We binge watched all 4 episodes that are out right now, but they are released weekly. So one came out last night.
but we haven't seen that one yet.
And yeah, we haven't seen that one yet. We'll be talking about that one and the one that comes out next Friday in the next episode. But WandaVision, it basically blends the style of classic sitcoms with the MCU, in which Wanda and Vision, two superpowered beings living their ideal suburban lives, begin to suspect that everything is not as it seems.
Yep.
Mysterious.
Yeah, and something that I was talking to Mags a little bit about was this was sort of like an interesting TV show for me to watch because, well, neither of us are that big into Marvel. I completely lost interest in Marvel right after Guardians of the Galaxy. Not because I didn't like it. That's probably my favorite Marvel movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. I just checked out after that and of the MCU. And Mags, you said similarly, like you just aren't that into Marvel.
Yeah, well, I was telling you, I think that they had their prime, and it was like kind of when Spider-Man and what else was there? Like
Infinity
I guess
War.
Hulk too. Yeah. And now, yeah, I just think they've left their prime.
Yeah. I think most people would agree Marvel's no longer in its prime, especially after the Infinity War saga and all that. That was sort of what they've been leading up to since like 2012. So they're like, what do we do now?
Yeah, I wasn't even interested in seeing those movies.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't see
either of them. They came out and I was just like, okay,
yeah,
cool.
I didn't see either of them yet, which I'm sure some of our listeners are like, what the hell? How have you not seen those?
I know.
But
I've seen Infinity War.
I haven't. Yeah.
There's a lot going on in it. Like it feels like they combined like 5 different movies.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I was kind of like, eh. It was a nice wrap up, I guess, but it was.
Yeah. Anyways, WandaVision. So
yeah. So the first thing I want to say, and I told James I wanted to tell him this yesterday, but I wanted to save it for the podcast, that a certain scene gave me like total Twilight vibes, because so it's the scene where they walk out into their driveway to like see what the noise is, and the beekeeper emerges from the sewer in the street.
Oh, you meant Twilight Zone.
Yeah, Twilight Zone.
I was like, Twilight Zone. No, you said it gave you Twilight vibes.
No, just Twilight?
Yeah.
Okay, Twilight Zone. That's what I meant. That specific scene, I was just like, that could totally be its own, like, Twilight Zone episode.
They might have been going for that, honestly, because wasn't that in their 60s episode? Their early 60s one?
Oh, yeah.
So that was probably intentional, where they were like, let's add some Twilight Zone.
It definitely was. It gave me so many Twilight Zone vibes.
Yeah. So, yeah, for those guys, I mean, we mentioned it's sort of based off like sitcoms of different eras, but for those of you guys who don't know the more specifics of that, they're literally shot and edited as though it was a sitcom. The first episode from the 50s, then from the 60s, then from the 70s. That's as far as we've gotten so far.
And then into the, I guess that's a spoiler.
Spoilers for after that.
Yeah, never mind.
But yeah, they did a really good job of emulating each era. One of my gripes, and it's definitely just a budget concern that with it was the animated intro of episode 2, where they wanted to do like a 60s style animation. They nailed the art style of it. It looked super 60s, but you could also, at least I could, clearly tell it was like puppet rigged animation and not hand drawn. And I was like, that did not exist in the 60s. But
yeah, it kind of felt like I don't know what, like, jagged is popping into my head, like, because like it wasn't just seamless. Yeah,
just you could tell it wasn't hand animated, even if they got the art style right. It was not old school animation, and that sort of threw it off a bit. And it was too crisp. Yeah, like you couldn't see the like 60s animation. You could see like the pen lines and the paint lines in the animation, because they were literally photographs of hand drawn shit. Or stuff. So
okay, so I really liked the writing because it's very like witty, and obviously it takes itself seriously because it's a sitcom. But then when the outside world interjects, we get more of like a dramatic show with like, I guess, almost like self-deprecating comedy, especially with the Darcy character that's like the astrophysicist. So I think there's like a variety. Like I like the dynamic between the different time periods.
I agree. I liked it was also just neat when they what's the way to say it without giving spoiler context? The showing the newer time period, it's such a difference in how it's shot and everything. It's definitely straight up classic like Marvel look to it once they get to that. And I think you mentioned that they use like a ton of different lenses. So if I had to guess,
so they use 47 different lenses. Yeah,
I'm assuming that probably went into they use different lenses for each era. That's what I would have done. I would have been like, okay, if we're shooting 50s style, let's get some 50s television lenses. Actually, no, you couldn't use a television lens. You'd have to use a film lens because television technology was incompatible with film technology at that time. So, yeah, okay.
I have a quote from Jess Hall, who's the director of photography. I guess it's more about the look, not the specific lenses, but he said the approach was to study and absorb the references of each period, to distill their technical and aesthetic choices, and then to selectively apply and to filter these within our own stylistic sensibility. The objective is to create images that are in a sense truly postmodern, not simply an homage to the past. This is what the complex narrative of WandaVision demanded.
I think they pulled it off very well. One of the things that really stood out to me for them like nailing the aesthetic was when he goes to, I think it's the city hall or whatever. They're having like the town watch meeting in there. You remember that scene? Where he's like, new business, and then he tries to like make like a serious discussion of like new business, and he's like, no, new business means like another round of Danishes or whatever.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so when he's walking up to the building and they have the shot like straight from head on, and it's clearly just like a facade type thing with the steps built in for him to walk up to, and I was like, I've seen that shot in so many 50s, 60s things. Like, it's perfect. Yeah. Like, ideal. Everything from Twilight Zone to Monsters. Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
No, I just like when they do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So they definitely nailed that, because I've seen that exact shot in so many different disparate shows, like everything from the Monsters to Twilight Zone. So it's definitely a period accurate both set and the way to shoot that set.
Yeah, he also said that the like 1950 to 1970s episodes were shot with like period tungsten lighting, and then the LED lighting doesn't like make an appearance until the later 2000 episodes.
Nice. All right, I like that.
Yeah,
that's sort of like what Kubrick did for Barry Lyndon, where he was like LEDs and actually they would use tungsten, but he was like, tungsten didn't exist in the 1700s. We're shooting in candlelight like a madman.
The other thing I was gonna just say real quick about the lenses was like, first I really liked the production design. Like, I thought it was fantastic.
Very well done.
And then so Jess Hall, he said that he used a lot of the lenses they used were from the like different time periods, but then they also used modern ones that were altered for his own style. Okay. So I don't know. I like that they use both, because it's like, it's not like they were trying to totally recreate the past, but they were also trying to use like their own styles. So I think they did a good job of like balancing that.
Yeah, it's like they what's the word for it? They made it their own, basically. They didn't just strictly copy. Yeah,
definitely.
So that's good. Even though there's like clear influences, it's not like, it doesn't feel uninspired, basically. It doesn't feel like just a ripoff for the sake of,
I also liked how they did like the changes of aspect ratios, especially like towards the end of the show or end of the episodes. And they would like linger on certain shots and then have these like pullouts, and it was very like mysterious. So I just like really liked the way they edited that.
Yeah. I really loved the with the Marvel intro going back into where it starts out with the whatever it is, the widescreen, the CinemaScope aspect ratio, and then like as you're able to read Marvel Studios, as it's pulling out the aspect ratio is shrinking and going into black and white, and so it gets to 4:3. And I just thought that was super nicely done. It looked very aesthetically pleasing, and
yeah, I agree.
nicely.
Like I like that they don't just like jump cut to the next aspect ratio.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like a smooth transition.
Yeah, and it's like a well done smooth transition too. It's not like the change of the transition fits what's actually on screen. Like the different motions mesh well together. It's not like it doesn't feel just tacked on like, oh, let's add a stretching in and out thing on top of this random shot. It's like, no, you can tell they planned it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So did we have anything else about WandaVision, or do you want to move on to Passengers?
I guess we'll move on to Passengers.
All right. So which Passengers are we talking about, Mags? There's several movies called Passengers.
Definitely not the one with Anne Hathaway that has like 2% on Rotten Tomatoes.
All right, so we're talking about the one starring Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence.
Yep.
And Lawrence Fishburne.
Yep.
Yeah.
We watched that 2 nights ago.
That sounds right, yeah.
And yeah, I think I just like saw something on Twitter about it, and then I'd already seen it multiple times, but James hadn't seen it. And first of all, I was very surprised that it has, was it 30%?
I think it was 40.
40%?
I think it was 40.
40% on Rotten Tomatoes? Like I think it was 30%.
30? I mean, I would give it I'd give it like a 50. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't particularly good either. It was like,
yeah, it's like decent.
Yeah, it was like
30%.
It was 30. Damn. It's like the type of movie you could just put on and be like, yeah, why not? But I'm not like excited for it.
Yeah, like it wasn't special, but it was. I thought it was a decent movie. I didn't think it deserved 30%.
Yeah, like there wasn't anything poorly done about it, is what I'd say. There was nothing bad. There just wasn't anything particularly like, oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I want to know where they got. Oh, spoilers. This isn't a spoiler because I'll take out the context, but there's some things made out of wood, and I don't know where would they have gotten all that wood from?
Are you talking about the end?
Yeah. There's some wooden structures.
Because remember how he planted the tree?
Yeah, but we see it's only been like what, maybe 50 years between the.
Yeah, I mean they probably broke down things in that garden area. Remember,
I forgot there's a garden area. Right.
Because he went in there to get roses for her, and then that's where he like got the tree idea.
All right, yeah, I forgot
that was
about
probably.
You're right. I forgot about the garden. That makes sense now. Okay, so I guess that's where they got the wood from.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I liked the robot. I think there was a pretty clear Shining influence in that, and especially when the way he was introduced. Oh, the bartender robot. What was his name?
His name was.
Yeah, but while Mags is looking up his name, basically he's dressed in red, just like in The Shining. When they introduce it, it's shot the same way as The Shining, where it's like the side tracking from the side as he enters.
Mm-hmm.
You see the empty room, and then there's just the bartender there, and then you realize something's not right about him. Except instead of him being a ghost, he's a robot. So,
his name is Arthur.
Arthur. Was that what it was?
Yeah, I was gonna point that out. The whole side tracking shots. That's what gave me the, I guess the way the bar was lit, the way the bartender's dressed, but also the specifically the side tracking shots reminded me of The Shining.
Yeah, it was definitely the cinematographer, at least, was definitely thinking Shining.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, what else is there to say about Passengers? Like we said, there's not much to it. And Maggie is frozen. Oh no. Okay, you're unfrozen. You're good.
Yeah, you were frozen too.
Yeah, okay. What else do we got to say about Passengers? I mean, like we said, there's not much to it. There's not much bad about it, but there's not much to it either. I guess
there are like two messages. One was like obviously the whole thing about like the ethics with like waking her up. Then the other thing was there's some quote like about not wishing you were somewhere else, but like making the most of where you are, something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess I liked that message that they played with, and then they ultimately ended up going with at the end with just like them living on the ship.
Yeah. It seemed like the writers, if I had to guess like what the writers were trying to go for in terms of like the ethics of it, I feel like they were probably going for, I mean, I don't even know if they probably wouldn't have used this terminology for it, but it seemed very Augustinian, where they were like, hey, well, even though this was an objectively bad thing to do and all that, even horrible actions can not be made permissible, but be work out for the best in the end. And it seemed like that type of principle was in play, at least in the writer's mind, that where he was like, yeah, no, this was horribly, because the writers made it clear it was something he should not have done, even though it led to something. The term for it's usually felix culpa, a happy fault. It's like something horrible happened. It shouldn't have happened, but it led to something that otherwise would not have happened. That was arguably better than if that bad thing had not have happened.
We also after we watched the movie, I was like looking up articles about it, and I went through this whole article about how they were talking about like Stockholm Syndrome, mm-hmm. and how the movie is like, what were they saying about it?
They were saying that the movie is basically Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah. So for people who don't recall what Stockholm Syndrome is, it's when someone falls in love with or gets attached to their kidnapper. That's Stockholm Syndrome. Yeah.
And so, like, first of all, he didn't kidnap her. And second of all, what were we talking about? How she already knows that he woke her up. So it's not like, and she's still she's still in love with him. So it's like,
yeah,
that's not really a.
Mm-hmm. And another thing about Stockholm Syndrome is it's partly dependent on the fact that the person who's kidnapped is dependent on their kidnapper. And that's what psychologically starts developing into an affection, because they're like, oh, this person takes care of me. If you've seen the film, that doesn't happen. She's completely independent of him for like, it's implied for like months probably. They don't even talk to each other.
Yeah, she is.
Like, he doesn't even
extremely upset.
Yeah, she doesn't even there's so little contact between them that he doesn't even know that she was locked in a room for 2 days at one point. They mentioned that
Did they?
Yeah, she mentions that her door malfunctioned and she couldn't get out of the room for 2 days, and he was like, that happened? And she was like, yeah. Like,
wow, wait, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I just thought that was like a nice little line illustrating like, yeah, they had absolutely no regard for each other during this time. So that's sort of a key aspect of Stockholm Syndrome that literally was not present, where they had no contact. They were completely independent of each other. So if she had been dependent on him, then I could see the argument, but that's a pretty big factor of Stockholm Syndrome that's cut out of the equation.
Yeah, and eventually when she does like forgive him, it's when he is doing a selfless act. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's totally not related to that. So in the beginning, he's selfish by waking her up, and by the end, he's selfless because he's basically giving up his life to save hers. Yep. He grows. Yeah. He grows as a person. I liked that. I really liked the messages that they played with. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why people thought it was bad. Well, I think a lot of people just can't get over the culpa part of Felix culpa. They're like, no, bad thing. It's like, all right, move on from that. Yes, it was bad. It shouldn't have happened. Now there's good things happening. I guess if I was thinking of like maybe the critics think that the plot was like, because when I'm thinking of the movie as a whole, like sometimes the plot felt like, I don't know, dry or just like not as developed. Mm-hmm. I think that's... like, it felt like it was like surface level sometimes, and it wasn't like very like detailed. I think that might also be a little bit down to the pacing, because I feel like they dragged out plot points that shouldn't have been dragged out, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And they
I
could,
agree, yeah.
yeah. So it made the less developed parts, or the parts that didn't even need more developed, that just didn't have to be, feel underdeveloped perhaps because we're lingering on it longer than we should have. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think.
Or I could be wrong.
No, I agree. I'm trying to think what scenes those were. I feel like they were probably like the bar scenes because I feel like we saw him in the bar a lot.
Oh yeah, a whole lot.
Obviously a lot of the dialogue there with Arthur was important, like the things that he brought up, especially with the like making the most of where you are and stuff. But I feel like there were definitely some scenes that didn't need to be in there,
or even just trimmed down,
or even shortened. Just trimmed.
The other thing that I wanted to touch on a bit was the sort of blending of sci-fi aesthetics that was in this film. Because like the exterior of the ship felt almost like Alien to me. For those who, I mean like the movie franchise Alien, not like Alien as in foreign. Because it had that creepy, semi-organic, but dark and scary looking type of spaceship, which was strange because that was not the interior of the spaceship at all. The interior was very like that classic, like Interstellar 2001 sci-fi aesthetic where everything's clean, white, futuristic, and not grungy at all. So it was a weird mishmash of aesthetics for the inside and the outside of the ship. I felt like the outside of the ship honestly didn't fit the story that much. It was a cool design, but I was like, it's maybe even if they didn't make the outside of the ship black, like it just looked evil. It looked like.
Yeah, I agree. I think what is getting me with that is like ship, like in sci-fi movies, the ships that are like that are like the good side, they're always like spherical or like rounded or like kind of like that, and then the alien ships are always like pointed and jagged and like drawn out like I guess almost like sword like. Which this ship totally looked like that. It kind of looked like
some type of drill.
I can't think of the name.
Like a corkscrew.
It looked like what's his name in Avengers? He has like long black hair. He's like the bad guy.
Loki? Something Loki.
Loki. He has like the
staff.
The staff. For some reason the staff, the top part of it is kind of shaped like a flame, sort of. And for some reason that reminded me of the ship and Passengers. I don't know why, but
I can see the resemblance.
So so I think like that's totally looks like an alien ship for sure. It
was just that slightly unsettling evil look. And it just didn't really match the rest of the aesthetic of the film.
I agree.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to touch on was that I just started a new film page on Instagram, and it's called Cinemersed, Sinemersed, which I will tag in the description. But so the tagline is immerse yourself in cinema, and basically I try to post like once or twice a day, as like a regular post, and it'll usually be like a scene from a movie with like cool facts about it, or things that like were changed with the scene, or something with like maybe the directors or actors. And then I also try to post on the Insta stories with things like comparing actors and actresses, or like who you liked better in different movies, like kind of like this or that type of thing. So
it's a good page. You should check it out.
Check it out.
Thanks for listening to our podcast, Directors on Tap.
Next week, we'll be discussing more WandaVision episodes, Mank, To Five Bloods, and the Trial of the Chicago 7.
As always, you can head over to our Instagram or Twitter page at Directors on Tap to stay up to date with releases of new episodes and get some behind-the-scenes content. There will also be a link in the description for our new film page at Cinemersed.
That's all. See you next Friday for more film talk.